Bangladesh's Supreme Court has drastically scaled back a controversial quota system for government jobs that sparked weeks of unrest and dozens of deaths. Thousands of student protesters have taken to the streets demanding the government abolish the quota system, which sets aside about 30% of government jobs for the families of veterans who fought in the country's 1971 War of Independence. The demonstrators say the job allocation should be merit-based. It's not yet clear how the demonstrators will react to the new ruling, which reduces that quota to 5%. Let's get more on this from DW reporter Binish Javid, who has been following the story for us. Binish, explain this to us. What does the court scaling back the reintroduction of the quota system mean in practice?
Michael, basically the Supreme Court has almost scrapped the quota system. Now 93% of government jobs are open and graduating students, and people can apply on these jobs on merit. And this is a huge difference from 44% of the jobs that were previously available for students to apply on merit. So this is a huge decision by the Supreme Court. Now, 7% of the jobs are still reserved. And out of these 7% jobs, 5% are for the war veterans, for the relatives of the war veterans, and 2% for the indigenous community. It is a big decision by the Supreme Court. And I have to tell you that it's the 30%, the most contentious quota was at 30% that was given to relatives of the war veterans. And that is what really had angered the students and the protesters. And now, after weeks of protests and days of violence, we see that Supreme Court has drastically scaled back, and now 93% of the government jobs are available for students and for people in Bangladesh to apply on merit.
What is your sense? Will this decision stop the protests?
Michael, this question is really hard to answer, because yes, the protests started because there was anger at the decision of the High Court last month that reinstated the quota system. That was how these protests had started. But there's a lot of anger, a lot of frustration in the public. The economy has not been doing well, and a lot of other people had also joined these protests. But over the last few days, more than 100 people in Bangladesh, and mostly students, have been killed. There are videos on social media circulating of police brutality. The government of Bangladesh denies being behind the violence and basically blames the opposition of instigating the protest leaders. But the reality is that thousands of students were injured. Many of them are still in hospitals. More than 100 were killed. There was widespread riots, a lot of violence on the streets, and there is real anger. It's a tragedy. So many people have been killed. So for the students, they are still very angry. And yes, a big demand of theirs has been now accepted by the Supreme Court with this decision. But then they want independent investigation of all the killings of the students. So at the moment, it's really hard to say how things will unfold, and will these protests actually stop.
This issue far from resolved then. Now, let's look forward, Binish. What impact might this decision have on the country politically, particularly on the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, who's been a staunch supporter of the quota system?
Michael, Sheikh Hasina is a very powerful prime minister. She is in power since 2009. But there is and under her rule, there has been a hard crackdown on political dissent. This is the first time in recent history that we see such strong agitation from students, and the public also joined. The opposition had boycotted the last election, and there are many political leaders that are in jail. This is just a sign, these protests, that there is a lot of dissatisfaction in the Bangladeshi society, and there are people who are willing to speak up, but she remains a very powerful prime minister. And let's see how this decision unfolds politically. But she enjoys a lot of support.
That's a DW reporter, Binish Javid. Many thanks, Binish.